Do your organization's employees ever knowingly use unauthorized software or websites to do their work? And did they think about whether or not it could put your organization's data or customers' data at risk? Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 58th live Cybersecurity Awareness Forum panel session. Today, we're going to examine some of the risks around shadow IT and shortcuts used by employees. I'm Scott Wright, your host, as well as CEO and Chief Engagement Officer at ClickArmor. And the CSAF, Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, is an open collaboration group for anyone who's passionate about security awareness and human risk management. And if you're a security awareness manager, a security professional, or even a business manager who's just concerned about cybersecurity and human vulnerability, then you're in the right place for the next hour. And we have some new faces on our panel of security experts today. And as usual, an engaged audience ready for a fun and informative discussion. So the CSAF is brought to you by ClickArmor, which is the Employee Cyber Confidence Builder, essentially a gamified platform for creating all kinds of security training. If you're looking for a more engaging employee cybersecurity training experience, especially for lagging compliance, remediation of vulnerable employees like clickers, or role-based security training, even custom training that you can't get anywhere else, and you want it to be engaging and easy to deploy, we'd love to talk to you. So I'll talk a little bit more about ClickArmor later, but before we introduce the panelists, just a reminder for people in the chat to enter where you're coming from around the world today. It helps us understand our international audience and gives you a little bit of practice on being active in the chat. Also, if you have any questions on your mind about shadow IT risks or best practices, or just challenges that you're facing right now, don't be shy. Just add your question in the chat before we start, and feel free to chime in on any comment that I or any of the panelists make. It adds to the value of the discussion. So we'd love to get your ideas. The format today, as usual, is we're going to introduce the panelists. We're going to talk a little bit about the context of the problem from a little bit of research I've done. I'm not the expert on any of this stuff, but I just like to share a bit of my perspective. And then I'll open up some questions. We'll have some poll questions for everybody in the audience, and that'll help everybody get an idea what the perspectives are from the rest of the people here. And then we'll have some open questions for the panel, and that usually you never know where it's going to go. So there's always good information here. So I'm going to start by having our guest panelists introduce themselves and just 30 seconds or a minute on who you are, what you do for a living. If you want to mention your organization, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. And a little bit about what you're passionate about in general. So I'm going to start it with Christopher, if you wouldn't mind.
All right. Hi, everyone. Hope everybody is doing okay. As Mr. Wright said, my name is Christopher McKay, and I work for the City of Lakeland as their Threat and Vulnerability Management Program, and I also help run their Human Risk Management Program. So I wear two hats, and I'm very flattered and humbled to be able to do both of them. Security awareness is definitely my passion. I love talking about technology. I love teaching technology. And more importantly, I love teaching our parents, our brothers and sisters, our cousins, our kids about the risk of being online and how they can mitigate that. Because I think those are the ones that really kind of need the help. So again, I'm very humbled to be a part of this, and thank you.
Excellent. Well, really good to have you here, Christopher. First time here with us. Second time with us is Sajib. So do you want to maybe do a quick intro for yourself, Sajib?
Absolutely, Scott. Can you hear me, Scott? Like just
Yeah,
doing a quick mic test.
absolutely. Yep.
So hi everyone. My name is Sajib. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm actually currently working as a director of IT and security for a startup. So it's at the Series C state right now. And the name of the startup is Potluck. I've been working with many startups in the past. One of my previous experience or my role was working for a wealth management firm, vetting startups before any investment was made. So yeah, I mean, a lot of experience in fixing security posture for startups so that they can actually secure more businesses. So currently, for Potluck, the goal is to take it public. So we're working on that, and also managing the GRC for Potluck, and working very closely with the development team to make sure that the app follows all the industry grade security, so that we can close more deals with only PE firms, which is our clients. So that's it about me. Thank you very much, Scott, again, for making me part of this discussion.
Yeah, no problem at all. And it's great to have you back. Thea, let you do an intro for yourself all the way from, I guess, Norway.
Yeah, we're in Oslo today, this evening. My name is Thea Mannix. I am a neuroscientist by education, but I work within the cyber psychology space, and I've also co-founded a cybersecurity human risk management SaaS product called Praxis Security Labs. And I am really interested from a social perspective in shadow IT. So I'm very looking forward to the discussion here today.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Thea. And we also have a newcomer on the panel, although Elizabeth has been with us many times in the audience before and really loved her perspective. So I thought it'd be great to have her join us. So, hi, Elizabeth. Good to see you.
Hi, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to just sort of throw an opinion out here.
Anything you
Um,
want to tell us about yourself?
I've done cybersecurity training. I took a boot camp and then started as a teaching assistant, and I've worked with instructors from the UK and from Tennessee and all around the US and Canada and Mexico. So I've been able to interact with a lot of different companies, a lot of different people who work in different perspectives of cybersecurity, and it's been really fascinating. So I'm currently working on a cybersecurity bachelor's myself,
Wow.
and hoping eventually to get into the education realm. I wasn't able to move past being a teaching assistant because I didn't have a degree, and they wanted, and I thought, well, okay, I can get experience, but I'm going to have to work at getting a degree. So,
Oh, good for
yeah,
you.
it's just been really.
Oh, she might have frozen, but excellent information from Elizabeth. Hopefully, she'll be unfrozen in a moment. I'm going to take this opportunity. Welcome, Elizabeth. Really happy to have you here. I want to take the chance here right now to, oh, somebody dropped off, and there she is. To just go a bit around the table of where people are coming from. As I mentioned, I'm in Ottawa, Canada. Thea's in Norway. Christopher's in, I think, Lakeland, Florida, and Sajib's in Montreal. Not sure where you want to say where you're from, Elizabeth, but we've also got England, North Carolina, Ohio, Kentucky, Maryland, Tampa, Chicago, Illinois, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Calgary, Vancouver, Cambridge, Ontario, North Carolina. Excellent. And Uganda. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. So let's get into things. It's been enough of the intros, but I'm going to share my screen. And as I said, we'll start with a little bit of context. And I also just have to go back to my chat and see if there were any questions raised. I don't think so. But in this session, we're going to look at the basic issue of shadow IT. Many of you have probably heard of it a lot. Others may not be as familiar with it. So I just wanted to start with a bit of a definition. It's just referring to the use of applications, devices, or cloud services by employees without the knowledge or approval of the IT department in their organization. And often it happens, and we'll hear other opinions on reasons why it happens. But generally, you'll hear things like employees looking for a faster, more efficient way to get things done. And it might be that the processes are perceived as being too slow or restrictive, the official processes or authorized processes. And from a remote work point of view, SaaS tools are easy to access in a lot of ways by employees and may not be as controlled in some cases. So the risks really are that you would end up with poor authentication and access control that could lead to unauthorized business data being accessed. And also you may have compliance violations if there are regulations or policies around things that shouldn't be done. So those are the main things that I sort of dug up around what shadow IT is. And just a few statistics. We've seen, I found this survey. I'm not vouching for whether it's accurate or not, but there are, these are numbers for discussion. 83% of marketers use alternative apps despite sanctioned tools being available. That's marketers, I guess, within an organization. 54% of cloud environments contain exposed assets with sensitive data. 35% of those exposed assets are vulnerable to high severity threats. And 1 in 3 employees deploy their own software without IT approval. Top departments are marketing, sales, product development, HR, and finance. So before we open up the floor to our panelists to comment on any of the context stuff that I said now, and if you'd like to adjust or make a comment on it, I'm just going to launch our first poll. So you'll see it pop up, and just like to get your thoughts on this first question, which is, what are the primary reasons employees in your organization turn to shadow IT? So we'll let people answer that as we go ahead to the first open question for the panel and for anybody else to comment on. So what drives employees to use shadow IT? So since you're sort of the veteran here, Thea, I'm going to let you sort of start this one off, and then the other panelists can answer on their comments.
Sure. So from what I've seen, it has been either convenience based, so it was more convenient for them to do the other. Now we will always do the easier thing as a general rule. However, if they've been sufficiently trained, I find that's not so much of a problem. The problem comes when they've been asked to either do a task that they don't have a tool for, and they're having to go through this big request system in order to try and access the tool, and it runs out of time with productivity. The alternative is that they're actually working with somebody external in the company who are, for example, we are going to need to read PDFs and make comments on the PDF, and they have a different tool than you have, and they don't really work very well together. So they will seek out a third alternative that'll actually make cooperation easier. I think the biggest reason why shadow IT tends to spread in companies, even if they are doing sufficient training, is something called social proof, which is where no matter how much you tell them they can't do something, if they see other people using it, they're going to go with that rather than what you told them. So yeah, I would say those two things would be the two main reasons why I think people do seek alternative shadow.
Excellent. I tend to agree. I think it's interesting that we do so much collaboration across organizations now, and there's just often not a really good setup for doing that easily. So I'm going to let Sajib go next. He's a little bit more experienced in this, so then Christopher and Elizabeth can understand sort of how they might contribute as well.
Yeah, sounds good. So one of the thing I think you have mentioned in your first slide some of the main reasons, but one of the thing that I think like that helped me fix. First of all, employees don't know whenever they get onboarded into a company, they don't know like what are the existing list of vendors that are already used within the company. So I think if you have a vendor management policy or a third party supply chain risk management policy, then bring it up to the employees within the organization to show them that there is an existing policy, there's an existing approved list of vendor, and then like then see like what the responses are, and if they would like to like have extra other tooling approved, right? So having a very well-defined vendor management policy, I think, or making people aware of that, I think that can basically reduce. And I think more and more we see that people goes to other tools because they don't know. Like just giving an example, like recently we had someone going for Monday.com for a project management tool. We have 3 existing project management tool already within the company that are absolutely similar to what Monday.com accomplishes, right? So when I brought the person back to the approved list of vendors, it's like, oh, I didn't know that, right? So I think inadequate information provided to these people without the complete picture, that causes them to actually reach out to external sources. So that is one of them. And the other thing is also, I think the IT team could take that responsibility a bit, is inadequate choices of onboarding new tools, right? So if something much better is out there, don't get legacy tools, right? So like one of the thing is, let's say, for example, Jira is a project management tool. It could be better for all the engineers, but it might not be well suited for the marketing team or like the sales team, right? So maybe in that case, they would like to use Rike or something else, right? So make sure that you're actually getting tools that are well suited for everyone within the company and not just specific teams, because that would actually get them to adopt those tools that are already approved rather than going outside of the approved vendor list and adopt other tools. So I think making sure that everyone is aware of like, proper vendor management process and also making the right choices whenever you're onboarding new tools within the organization.
That's awesome. Love that answer. And great examples, as Harris said. And also, just a note, if anybody in the panel wants to comment on things that people are entering that chat, that helps me too. I don't have to moderate so much, but I'm going to turn it over to Christopher and see if he has any initial comments on this.
Wow, those are all great comments so far. I've attacked this problem from a threat and vulnerability management standpoint of using security controls, and I've also attacked it using educational. Like our panelist has already said, the pressure of just get it done. I have to edit that PDF before 5 o'clock. I don't have the time to submit a ticket, to have them install it, to get a license. So I just go to the internet and download it. No, the thing I want to point out during these panel discussions and other conferences, I always hear guidance. I hear, policies, but you got to be careful because there's so many policies I have read. And remember, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't even understand what that policy is trying to tell me. So be careful when you throw out hey, the users have a policy, they should know. How many end user agreements have we read that you would need a lawyer's degree to understand it? So
Yeah.
it's great that we have a policy. It's great we have a framework, but you got to make sure that the common end user actually understands it and it's readily available to them. The user access list or the vendor approved list, that is a great idea. We have one on our cybersecurity awareness website. These are approved tools. These are not approved tools. But the thing, again, I wanted to strike is your policies and standards. You got to make sure they're clearly written and not for the IT guys, because we have the curse of knowledge.
Yeah.
We know what we're talking about. But again, for the end users, if you make it so high technical, there's going to be like, you know what? Google, give me this tool.
Yep, absolutely. Great points, Christopher. Thanks very much. Elizabeth. Oh, need you off mute.
Yeah, like, oh wait, I gotta find that little button. Yeah, I was just gonna respond to something in the chat there. When IT department becomes, the Department of no and wait and that sort of thing, that can be an issue for other people, but it also is an issue for IT saying, why are you not explaining it in a way that people are wrapping their heads around and joining and being on board with? If you've tried 27 ways and people just don't want to be on board, that's one thing. If you're just simply, hey, this is the policy, get with the program, that's an issue. That's another kind, people can possibly work with you to find out, hey, if you get this program and you're working on that PDF and everything's coming together, but that particular program that you're using has this known vulnerability and people have been attacking us daily in that particular area, waiting to see if they could get in. And now they're in, and look at all this other data they have access to because you weren't willing to talk to us about it. Understanding that there may be a moment where you're going to have the other department heads come in and say, look, we need to approve this fast because here's reasons. Something on the IT department having the ability to say, there are a lot of reasons why we should say no. There's a lot of reasons why we should say yes. We need to have a couple different plans in place for speed and also protection. So I think that that's something that I've talked to different people. I have one particular instructor in mind. He was able to go through And because of who he is and what he's able to do, he could go through his whole network, which was huge, and just scan it and say, hey, this shouldn't be here. But now we know it's here. We can put it as one of our assets. We can start protecting it appropriately. If you can do that instead of saying, well, here's the only things you're allowed to do, take up some of the slack and say, people need new tools. Let's find out what those tools are, see what we need to do, and then have some other conversations. That'd be my
Awesome.
2 cents.
Excellent. Great insights, Elizabeth. I love that. Also wanted to address a couple other comments in the chat. So Shelley talks about, the idea that, people tend to look at things, if you look at it from the point of view of drug advertisements on TV, right? People think the next new thing is going to be their savior. And if I'm interpreting Shelley's comment right, I think that goes to something I've seen in the past where people generally feel that the IT team and their policies are way behind and that it will at some point be accepted or the tool that they want to use should be accepted and it will be accepted in the future. So that's something I think you got to get ahead of, right? I mean, if there are risks and there's a reason you haven't authorized certain tools, you need to be on top of it. So that's sort of on the IT team. And another interesting one is research. Anthony mentioned, the idea that research departments have, a much higher rate of collaboration externally in general. And I've seen organizations where their research team is literally on a separate network because it's so risky. And that might be an opportunity for the IT team as well to say, could we do things in a way that lets people do things the way they want to with fewer of our authorized tools or other tools. So those are my thoughts on it as well. So any last roundtable stuff from the panel before we leave this question?
I just want to capitalize on what Elizabeth said. She's 100% right. Don't be a department of no. In my role, I always say yes with a but. Sure, you can have that, but it's the same thing when your mom or dad said no to you and you walked away kind of like, I thought it was a great idea. Well, give me an explanation of why you're saying no. It will increase our risk surface. We already have a duplicate tool. Just don't say no and just leave it at that. Again, you got to be collaborative about these things. You got to get them when they're starting. On our website, we have a nice little link saying, hey, you're working on a new project? Let us know if we can help.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to recognize for people, yeah, we do care about your privacy, but we have an obligation to protect the assets and our customers' information as well, right? And so that's why we have to monitor you. We have to put these tools in place and make sure that they're secure. All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll go to the next poll question, which is, even though it says poll 3, it's which department in your organization is most likely to use shadow IT? So I'm not sure if I put this as multiple choice or one, but I'm going to launch it now. And so basically, you can choose marketing, sales, customer service, product, and again, not sure if I allowed more than one choice. This screen may be wrong, but it'll be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on who the organization is that's most likely to be doing shadow IT. So we're going to sort of keep in line with that. What are the most significant risks associated with shadow IT, including data loss, security gaps, regulatory compliance? Would like to hear from the panelists and from people in the chat around what you've seen or what you suspect are the biggest risks from people using shadow IT and unauthorized tools. So anybody on the panel, if you have a comment that immediately comes to mind, you can put up your hand if you can figure out how, and we'll go to you as priority based on your hands up. So Sajib.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, because like working with so many startups, I think like one of the things that I've seen mostly is, first of all, proper handoffs, right? Like if someone is using something without the knowledge of the IT department, whenever that member of the team leaves, then we don't know like where that data is. If the other team members are basically, looking for, okay, what, we had this, now the person left and we don't know where this data is and we don't know how to access it, right? So in those cases, sometimes you have to reactivate that account and try to get access to that third-party software and everything. So that creates a huge gap if another scenario kind of comes up, which could be related to incidents, right? So we wouldn't even know, like, if that software gets compromised in his absence, right? So I think like there is a major incident response gaps. And especially, like when you're writing your incident response management policy, you would want to note all critical softwares within there, right?
Mm,
So that you can include all the steps that should be included in the playbook, right? So if we don't even have the knowledge of that, that becomes a huge risk for the company, and especially if your company is buying, under GDPR supervision or like CCP and all of that, right? So it kind of puts the IT team in a very bad spot, and especially if there is a CISO, then he's legally binded for the company, and if it's out of his knowledge, that puts him in a very bad spot as well. So compliance violation, incident response gaps, and I think one of the other ones would be, yes, obviously access control. There is a big problem with that because it's totally outside of IT supervision. But I think data loss could be a big thing as well, right? So if there is anything important or sensitive that were stored within that platform, then without that knowledge, like we won't be able to even recover that. So even for backup perspective as well. So I think the main would be all these points. Without the proper knowledge, that could put the company in a very bad spot if something had to go wrong.
yeah, for sure. I hadn't even thought about the incident response thing. Like if somebody's doing a critical part of the business in an unauthorized tool or SaaS environment that you don't even know about, that could be a big risk. Um, let's go to Christopher.
Um, you know, I think he said it perfectly. Being a threat and vulnerability management guy, I can't protect what I don't know exists. So all of a sudden, we're getting breached on a product that we didn't even know or we weren't even monitoring. Um, One of the biggest things that I found working for the oil and gas industry is integration failures. People don't think about that. You have these foreign software or foreign hardware in your environment. When you try to upgrade something, push a patch on something, that's going to be a failure point for your whole project, and you didn't even know.
Mm,
So that's one of the biggest things for me. And of course, like he said, you know, the the risk of unvetted tools, you could be exposing sensitive data.
yeah, absolutely. Thea has her hand up.
Yeah, so just along the lines actually of what the last guys have said, um, something that I've noticed is that a lot of people I work with, shadow IT isn't even in the risk assessments that they do
Mm,
in any format. And they say, well, we say, well, why isn't it in the risk assessment? They're like, well, how can we possibly know they're using it, right? And there's no way of accessing it. And I'm like, you might have to talk to people. I know that's really scary, but actually just getting down on the ground and asking them, where
yeah,
do you find work most frustrating? What kind of tools would you love to use? And then go looking for them. Those kind of questions, I think, is actually really important. But actually just not having that in your risk assessment at all, because technologically it's quite awkward, can be solved fairly easily just through going down and talking to people or reviewing people, and so on. The other thing that I find quite difficult with shadow IT is that it is such a big job. It is a really big risk, and often people don't have IT teams. There's an IT person, and they're already struggling to manage the IT stuff that they know is on the books. And then you're saying to them, well, you need to go out and hunt for things you don't even know what they are. So I think industry wide, I think that's a really, really important thing that we need to work on, is how to figure that out as easily and conveniently as possible.
excellent points. Yeah, I mean, risk number one is I don't know what I don't know, right? You need to kind of do some kind of an inventory, whether it's automated or, as you said, talking to people. Who hasn't spoken that wants to on the panel? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just going to say, very similarly, I know Cletus has always talked about this when he's talking about when he is part of an IT program, people come and talk to him. He always open door policy with the IT department. Make sure that people know that they can come and say, hey, I need a new tool, or I don't understand how this works, or I did something and it messed up. And, whether it's I clicked on something, or I tried using this tool and it doesn't seem to be interacting right. And they're like, yeah, because we blocked everything. um, Whatever it is, be an open IT department so that people know it's okay to talk to you. It's okay to say, hey, I need something. So just like they was saying, you could be, as the leadership, going and saying, we we need to know if there's something else on the network, not so that we can beat you with it, but so that we can then protect it and see if it's really the best thing. Maybe there's a better tool that you and we don't know about yet, but this, what we had to offer you, wasn't what you needed. This is the thing you chose. Maybe there's another option that's more secure that we can, but the conversations are the really, really big deal.
Awesome. Did I miss anybody? All right. I'm going to go to our next poll, which will be, what is your organization's current approach to managing shadow IT? So some people here may not know, that's fine. Others may work with multiple companies or organizations. So, just pick your favorite one, or the one that comes to mind with the most recent notable knowledge. No names are needed, but just interested in hearing partly from the panelists, but the other thing we're going to go on our last open question with the panel is, how can organizations maintain control of technology risks without stifling employee initiative and productivity? And I think, as Elizabeth hinted, one of our normal panelists, regular panelists, Fleetus Poston, is his favorite saying is talk to people, right? So that's the number one step, probably. So I'll say that on Fleetus's behalf. Start a dialogue between security and different functional areas. And as Elizabeth said, have that open door policy. But I'll turn it over to the panel. Again, put up your hand if you have something in priority order. Otherwise, I'll just call on somebody uncomfortably and put them on the spot. So Sajib, how about you first?
Yeah, I think this question is very important and probably one of the most important among the other ones. So I'm going to focus on this question in two parts. One is the technical approach, and the other one is the administrative. So I think the IT role has evolved with time, and it's no longer in a corner room just with your computer and the server room, right? So it's you really got to go out there and like socialize with everyone, and like spread the knowledge as well, so that you can at the end of the day educate these people so that they can understand the risks of not doing something that they're not supposed to do, right? So from the administrative approach of IT, I would say to reduce or minimize the risks of third-party applications or shadow IT would be a well-defined vendor management policy. So that is the first step. And you can actually get inspired by NIST 800, either 30 or the 37 article. One of the best thing with those articles is that they're so big, but at the same time, you get all the knowledge and adopt it with your current company that you're working for, right? So you don't have to take everything from there. Just make sure that you take the most important parts of it, like risk assessment, like involving the right stakeholders and making sure the executive management knows about the risks, so that at the end of the day, everyone within the company is actually aware of third-party risks, right? So that's the first thing. And also making sure that you spread that knowledge by making sure whenever you're onboarding employees, that's a document that they're acknowledging, and like signing that document as well. So like Christopher said, make sure that those policies actually are written in proper simple language and not very complicated language, so actually they actually understand the risks. So that would be the first two things. So making sure that there is a vendor management process and an open communication with everyone within the company and familiarizing everyone with the risks. So from a technical approach, right? I think the most important part is that you do know what's going on with every devices in the company, right? So that's where a mobile device management solution comes into play, right? So like you make sure that every devices, at least there are some sort of supervision. There are many MDM solutions out there for Windows and Macs today. So you get to choose the most effective tools out there so that you get the most data of everyone's devices that they're using. And after that, you have also network security solutions that can actually monitor all third-party accesses, right? So on a yearly basis, when you actually do a risk assessment, which is part of our audit, actually, so you have to run a risk assessment mandatory, so that you can take all those data and present to your upper management saying that, hey, these are the vendors that are out there that people are using are not approved. So what can we do to make sure that we adopt these vendors so that the productivity remains, but we also go through those subscription, which provides us additional security controls, right? So that basically, like makes us the friend of all the users and not just saying, no, you can use it, right? And one other thing is embracing technology, right? So for something with AI, what we did is that when it came out like about two years ago, like we sat down together with my CTO and we went on all AI tools that are available. So OpenAI, Perplexity, we have Anthropic, we have all the Midjourney and all of these tools. So what we said that, okay, let's go with these tools and assess them one by one and see which tools actually use the data to train their models from the prompts and make sure that we actually spread that knowledge to all our employees, right? So that's when we made our AI usage policy that basically showed all the users that these are all 5 tools that we have seen people using. Make sure that you turn off these controls, which would allow your prompts to be used for training their models, right? So embracing the technology beforehand so that we actually are acting proactively and not reactively, right? So that is one of the most important. I think IT teams nowadays, like we forget that, like we have to be out there first, before the users. And I think one last thing I would mention is that there's a very good question about like which teams are susceptible to use applications outside of the approved vendor list. I would say sales and marketing team are more prone to that because they really want to get things fast, close that deals, and make sure that they get the most out of their techs. So in those cases, you need to be able to actually hold a yearly or annual tech talk or something like that so that you get that opportunity to spread that knowledge and basically, like introduce all the risks out there that are there. So, like I think this all combined can actually help you minimize the risk and balance and establish a balance between control and productivity. So I would say like, this is something if you're able to actually cover all of these together, you'd be able to minimize this risk and reduce the attack surface as well.
Wow, very comprehensive. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Christopher, go ahead.
That was very well said. Very well said. Just talking about the technical side of it, we can have port security, we can have DLP policies, vulnerability scannings, endpoint management protection, firewalls. We talked about this, Mr. Wright. We've gotten incredibly good at using technology to protect technology, But here's the thing, people will be people. And my mentor gave me that great saying, and it's so true. It doesn't matter what technology you have in place, you're trying to change people's behavior.
Yep.
And again, we talked about this the other day, organizational change management. The old IT crowd used to be like, I don't want to deal with people. That's why I became an IT guy, so I can lock myself into a cupboard and never have to deal with them. That doesn't fly anymore. Okay, if you run a set it and forget it program, you're already losing. You have to be among the people. What are they thinking? What are they doing? What are their challenges? If you're going to send out a survey once a year, that's not going to work. Are you showing up to people's meetings? Are you showing up to the cafeteria and listening about what's going on? So educating the employees definitely have to be priority number one. And we talked about this. I run a non-punitive program. And I think Elizabeth hit upon that, where you don't want to make someone feel bad about something, because they'll never come back to you when it really is an emergency, you know? So, again, it's not about policing, it's framing it as a partnership, you know? And again, tell real stories. Hey, did you hear what happened to Bob when he downloaded that shareware? You know, he infected my computer and his computer. So tell real stories about shadow IT, make it real. And again, run interactive sessions. Let employees bring the newest iPad or the newest piece of software. Let them demo it to you and say, hey, I think this is really going to be great. But I really think it comes down to, again, user education, because we can put all the technology in place, but if we make it so cumbersome, if we're the no department, then just humans being humans, they're gonna find a way around.
Yep, absolutely. Very well put, Christopher. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add?
Uh, Not really. You guys just kind of covered a lot of the bases here and made it really good points. I definitely feel like communication is always a big deal, and you can have some really, really strong, capable IT people that struggle with the human aspect. How do I tell these people they shouldn't be doing that? And sometimes it's just a personality thing, and you have to say, okay, as the team, let's make sure we have a person on the team who can communicate well, or somebody that person can go to and say, look, I'm having all these things happen, can you talk to people some way or another? Have a communicator who's part of who can either liaise or be part of the IT team, because we want to have people being productive. We want to have open websites that people come and buy things from. We want to have information that flows where it needs to flow to. We want to, take care of those PDFs. We want to do the research. But we also want to make sure that the things that we don't want to happen are protected from happening as much as possible.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Thea, anything else to add?
Just one thing, I find sometimes we get in these conversations and it can sound like we're saying it's like people versus IT. And it's actually people versus policy, aka bureaucracy, versus IT, who is also against bureaucracy, who is also arguing with people. Like, it's quite a complicated thing. And one of the things I find people get really stuck in is this is just how we've always done it. They're not really reassessing their processes very regularly, or they're assessing them for security, but not for efficiency. And I think that that's something that you should sit down and try and address on a fairly regular basis. It doesn't have to be all the time. But just looking at where can we remove blockades to getting these things kind of approved, and where can we get them done as quickly as possible. Because a lot of the time people are just very bored of waiting, and they're waiting because of things that maybe was necessary 5 years ago, but it's not necessary now for us to do that anymore because of updated technology, etc. It also is challenging because it often requires cross-departmental communication, which can be awkward and quite difficult at the time. But it's definitely, I think, worth having a crack at, for sure.
Yeah, very good point. A couple of things I'll just comment on in the chat. Godwin, made a really good point about the threat actors often make use of hacked software or different versions of software. So when people install that stuff, they may not be aware of the risks that they're bringing the organization to. So that goes back to Christopher's point of education, making sure people understand where those risks actually come from. Like, why are we blocking this particular thing, right? Well, because there is a known potential vulnerability from that. And Simone also mentioned, that HR and corporate communication are the biggest assets. Again, being able to communicate with people is key about why the risks are there and why you're doing what you need them to do. So, and Terry, communication and relatability, making sure that people can understand or at least see relevance in that stuff. So I'm going to move on now. Just before we move to review of our poll results, I am going to see if I can find my slide, which I probably can't. Something happened there. Pardon me, folks. Should be here. Failed to start. Don't know what that's about. You're going to see my whole screen, but nothing embarrassing on there. So for now, anyway, if you can see that. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a blurb about ClickArmor because it relates a lot to the things that we've talked about when it comes to employee engagement. I spoke to Christopher earlier this week about, our mutual history in risk management. And I come from the original, I'm an engineer. And one of the things that I did 20 years ago was IT security risk assessments. And we had a pretty good methodology here in the Canadian government for identifying risks based on assets, threats, and vulnerabilities. So generally, most of the time you're trying to reduce risk by reducing the vulnerabilities in any system. And that's a pretty straightforward thing to do when it comes to IT risks. But what I noticed was the risks related to the people are very different because one of the terms that sort of is my pet peeve is the human firewall. Because to me, when you say the human firewall, it's kind of like, okay, we'll put these rules in place and they will always be followed. For whatever the same situation is, it's always going to be reliably treated that way. Well, that's not the way humans actually work. And so I came to understand early on that human vulnerability is a big part of the human risk that we really don't understand or talk about that much. And so when I created ClickArmor, it was to address that issue of the human side of vulnerability in the larger picture. How does that contribute to our risks? And to get humans to be less vulnerable, we have to engage them and we have to keep them engaged long enough that they understand the message and give them a chance to practice things, practice facing things they're going to see in the real world. And so that's really what we do with the ClickArmor platform. It's about creating a learning space where people can be engaged enough that they pay attention. And once you've got them into that mode, they're much more open to learning about why they should look for, a bad sender email address or bad links and things like that. So we actually use a virtual inbox phishing simulator that is a complement really to the live phishing simulations. If you like to use live phishing simulations, that's fine. Some people don't prefer them. I think it's just a lot of times used prematurely and maybe misused or overused when people haven't really got that initial foundational learning. And it may seem a little bit counterproductive to have people going through interactive situations where they have to spend a little more time thinking about things. But I have found that it actually is more effective for people to learn and build their confidence around how they are facing cyber risks and how they're going to comply with all these great policies and measures that we put in place. So that's the whole purpose of ClickArmor, and we're focused a lot on helping remediation of people's vulnerabilities. So if you have people who you call clickers, or maybe you have a better term for it, people who are vulnerable or highly targeted people, they may not be necessarily vulnerable, but they're targeted and they're going to fall for something one day. So we create remedial training, we can do role-based training, and even custom training of the kind that you would never see in off-the-shelf video-based training. Our stuff is not video-based, so that means we can change the content really quickly and have many different roles addressed in a very economical way. So if you want to learn more about ClickArmor and how we do our interactive gamified cybersecurity training, please reach out. I'd love to have a chat with you. So with that, I'm going to move along to, first of all, maybe stop sharing my screen for a second and see if I can get it to share again. And we're going to look at the polls and see, something tells me there we go. Okay. So the results of question 1, you may not necessarily be able to see the entire response. Hopefully we can interpret it because sometimes they're not in the same order. But the question was, what are the primary reasons employees in your organization turn to shadow IT? So to number one was to improve productivity or efficiency. So people just trying to get the job done, as we talked about, and to bypass slow or restrictive IT processes, followed by lack of awareness about the approved tools and lack of access to the necessary tools. So I think that's a really interesting one. I'm going to just go through these quickly, but I'd like the panel and anybody else to comment on anything that they see in this data. It's only 20 people or so who responded, but it is basically reflecting everybody who was on the call. So for how organizations are establishing some kind of channels to, I'm not sure that question at the top was right. It's which departments are in your organization are most likely to use shadow IT. So the biggest one looks like product and engineering, followed by marketing. Interestingly, sales is not as high as marketing. And I know that Sajib pointed out to sales tends to be higher. But others in the group here seem to feel that operations and IT, ironically, is among the top. So this will be an interesting one to hear the panel's comments on. And then finally, question was, what's your organization's current approach to managing shadow IT? So number one is educate employees and promote secure alternatives, followed by not having a formal approach, and then strictly prohibiting and blocking unauthorized tools. So it's a pretty wide spectrum of what we're doing. So love to hear people's comments on that. Anybody in the panel want to take a shot at interpreting or commenting on what we're seeing in the poll data? Sajid?
Yeah, I think like it's pretty like usual like on in terms of like when I mention about sales and marketing, it's because this is case by case. Like not every company's the
Yeah,
departments they behave the same way. But into my past experiences, like I've seen that, like a lot of like lead aggregation platform were adopted without even like our knowledge, and we have
yeah,
seen that, and we went and we actually adopted them because we knew that, like it was actually useful tools and stuff like that. So I think, like technical teams, like engineering team, like as soon as you understand their needs and like, build a proper safeguard with them knowing that these are the risks, right? So I think like, that can be reduced. Operations team, for me, like based on my experience, yes, sometimes they may go out of the way, but I think as soon as you like build that vendor management process and introduce that policy,
yeah,
and always make sure that you involve the right stakeholders. So first of all, the department head, and then you have the legal team and the finance team to approve the budget and the legal for the terms and conditions side.
yeah.
It becomes very clear whether you should approve or decline the need of that platform, right?
Mhm.
So if your department head is not even aware that you want this technology, then at that point, like it's pretty clear that it's not probably needed, right? So, like I said, like a clear policy with very clear guidelines would help you make the decisions very clear. So that would
Yeah,
help reduce those requests a lot.
excellent. Got a couple more minutes left. Anybody else on the panel want to comment on any of the poll results?
I was quite surprised to see quite how many people are doing strictly prohibiting unauthorized tools. I would say from a cyber psychologist perspective, you're just asking for trouble from that, because people don't get like people get sneakier. You know what I
Yep.
mean? They really
Yeah.
do. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend that. You can have a limited number that you know are extremely dangerous and you block them, use it when you
Yeah.
come. But I mean, having that as like the base policy, you're just asking for trouble, really.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a representation of the, maybe disproportional representation of people in this session who have
Mm,
very sensitive data and it needs to be strictly
yeah,
protected. So
exactly.
there's
I
a
agree. Yeah.
interpretation there. Excellent. All right. Um, I'm going to just do a quick roundtable and just say, anything that you would like to do differently after having heard the discussion today, anything that comes to mind that was a real, game changer on comments that were made here, that would be awesome for us to hear about. Just enter in the chat, or anybody in the panel want to comment on anything else they heard.
For me, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for being with us today. It is a very important subject that doesn't get a lot of traction. And again, it just isn't a tech issue. Um, I think it's a trust issue. If people are reaching out for shortcuts, it means something is going on in our systems or our communication or our culture that isn't meeting their needs.
Right. Right. For
Um,
sure.
so you have to address the people issue. Addressing the technical issue is usually pretty easy. Again,
Hmm.
network segmentation, firewalls, load balancers, etc. But it really is a people issue. And Ms. Mannix, you're correct. The no approach is dangerous, but you have to work with what you got. Electric companies, public safety companies, financial companies
Yeah.
were beholden by compliance auditors. So sometimes a strict guideline has to be done. But I go back to my point, just don't say no. Just don't throw up your hands and say it's a compliance issue and walk away. Be human, be collaborative.
Yeah.
Listen, I would really love to do that. Unfortunately, X, Y, and Z. But I tell you what, maybe we can come up with a different way. But again, I think it's more of a human thing, and I appreciate the time and everybody joining us today.
Excellent. Awesome. I know we just have a minute left before we start losing a lot of people, and I just want to be able to announce, first of all, if you haven't joined the Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, you can do that. If I go by too fast on this slide, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll give you a link to join the forum. That's where we post notices and of upcoming sessions, and as sessions are recorded and posted. So just want to let people know the next session. I'm actually going to try and squeeze a couple in before August. I'm probably going to take some time off in August, so don't want to have a session then, but we'll maybe do two in July. So the next one will be on July 9th, and it's going to be a little more maybe technical or more on the governance side than on the education and training side than that what I typically do. But I really like this topic, and that is, understanding and selecting an AI governance model for your organization and how you actually communicate that to people. So there's a gentleman named Garrett Graychek from uattest who I think has some really interesting ideas on this. So I'm going to have him on the panel, maybe some other panelists as well. But would love to see everybody join that one as well. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see you again soon. My motto at the end of each of these is engaged employees reduce risks. So please keep that in mind. And until next time, take care and talk to you later.